Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So now we're going to learn about composite data types, right? We just draw this. Okay, never mind. So now, as for composite data types, composite data types are they're not self-contained. So they're not self-contained. That is the first thing about composite data types, and moreover, they contain, or you can say they refer to other data types. Right? So they refer to other data types. And these other data types can be, non-composite, they can be primitive, they can be enumerated data types, sub-ranges, they can be anything. And the very first data type is what is it? What is it? Yes, sorry. Records or records, however you want to pronounce it. Records. Now, we are because records are just so important, and they're kind of like a big part of the syllabus or this chapter especially. We're going to give them some time, right? We really are going to give them some time, and that sometime is maybe 3 to 4 videos. I would try to keep it short though, but in order to cover all the content and stuff. So before I try to explain anything, if any of you have already learned about OOP, for object oriented programming, if any of you have already learned about that, or how classes and objects work, then records are kind of like the same thing, but just a much more simpler version of that, right? The syntax of records and why or how do we use them, we're just going to learn about it right now. Alhamdulillah. So instead of trying to give you the I'm sorry. So instead of trying to give you, just the definition and just the syntax and be done with it, let me try to give you a scenario where you might need or want to use records. Okay. Let's say there is something that you want to represent inside a computer system. Let's say you want to represent a student, right? You want to represent a student. In other words, you know what? A record is just a blueprint or a template, you know, to model or create instances of real life objects, okay? Of real life objects. A blueprint or template to model or create instances of real life objects, right? Now, what do I mean by that? Let's say you want to represent a student, right? So a student can have grades, the subjects, the number of classes they have, their teacher, and they have their own name, right? So now what do I mean by that? Why am I doing this? Why am I writing this? Look, one student can have a name, a teacher, a class, subjects, and grades. Another student is going to have all of the same things, right? But the values are going to be different, right? So for example, let's say there are 30 students inside a class. The first student is going to have a different name. Maybe the name is Mikhail, right? The teacher is going to be Sir Muazzam, right? The class is going to be 10th D. The subjects are going to be maths, physics, and computer. the grades are going to be A, and B, right? For the second student, let's say the name is going to be Malaika. The teacher is going to be, Zahida, Ma'am Zahida. The class is going to be different, the subjects are going to be different, the grades are going to be different, but at the end of the day, it's still a student, or she or he is still a student, right? And they have the same properties. The properties are, the values of the properties are different, but the properties themselves are same. Properties are same, but their values are different. Okay? The properties are same, but their values are different. In that kind of a scenario, this is where you try to try to use record, right? You might just think of using variables. Okay, I'm going to say student one name, student one teacher, student one class. I mean, you're going to have then a ton of, let's say you have got 30 students inside of a class, right? And each student have how many? One, two, three, four, five. Each student have got five properties, then that makes it, 5 times 30. It gives you 150 variables. Are you going to start creating 150 variables for that? No. It's way better to just create a single record, and from that single record, you can create different instances. You know, you can create different instances. I think the way you explain records and the way you explain classes is just literally the same thing, but different syntaxes. So let's say I make a student. So look, this entire thing, this entire thing here is my template for a student, right? Template or blueprint. And I can say, so we have got the first student, student one, student two, right? And a student, and a third student, right? All of these are instances, right? Of of the record student, right? So you make one template, one record, or as we're going to learn later on, one class, and from that you make instances and stuff. You make, objects from that. These are called instances or objects, right? So, or in other words, I might say, if I was to not say a student, let's say a house. You are, a guy who sells plots and houses, right? You can make a blueprint, a house. You can give it, a house ID. You can give it, the location. You can give it the price. You can give it, the date when it was built, when the construction was finally completed, right? And then you can make different instances of the, template house. I just used student because normally this is what we usually use, but you can do anything, right? You can make a character, an enemy inside a game. You can do anything you want, right? And if you want, I can start giving you. You know what? It would be better if I was to give you these. Let me see how long has the lecture been though, because I don't want to make it way too long. Already 8 minutes. Okay, let me just give you a few more examples. Let's say you make a blueprint or a template or a record that is house, right? Now that house is going to have a location. It's going to have a price. It's going to have, construction date. I think these properties are enough, right? So this is the record, and these are its properties or attributes, as we call them, attributes, like we had for the student, right? And this entire thing is the record. Sorry, the record. And now we can start creating different instances from it. We can make, house one. Let me just make it here. We can make, or let's just not draw an arrow. Let's just do this. House one, the location is California. The price is, $500,000. I don't even know how many, right? The construction date is, let's just write the date of today. The date is going to be whatever. Let's say, 12 6 2020, right? Let's just do this. That is one instance, right? That is one instance. Another house has the same properties but different values, right? House number two, that's in, let's say, Multan, from my country, Pakistan, right? It's, 5, I don't even know how many zeros, PKR, and then the date is 12, 5, 21. That is the second instance, right? That's the first instance, that's the second instance. So that is what I'm trying to tell you guys. You can either do a student, you can either do a house. And one of my favorite examples in here, I know you might not need these many examples, but I just want to give them to you anyway. Another example can be of a character. Let's say you love playing video games, right? You love playing Minecraft, or you're trying to make a game, right? So you're going to make a record, and the record is going to be character, right? Now this character is the record, and it has got its own properties or its own attributes. It has its own health, you know, it has its own mana, it has its own, level, you know, and then obviously, let's say, it has its own name, right? And then, so this entire thing would be the record, and the name, sorry, an instance would be, let's say, character one, right? And, the name is Alex, the health is 100 hits or 100 units or whatever you may want to call it. Mana is 20, level is 5, right? That would be an instance, and you can make more of them. A second character might have, a different level, a different health meter, a different mana, a different name. It can be Steve, because I'm talking about Minecraft characters. But Minecraft characters don't really have mana though, and they don't have levels, but the XP is there. So I think that is enough for today's lecture. So today we learned what records are, when are they used, and just I gave you a bunch of different examples, right? Now we're going to learn the syntax, right? The syntax for it, and then in the next lecture we're going to learn about how do you make instances from that, and how do you extract values and stuff, right? So till done for today, okay? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.